Yesterday we learned how to find the axis of symmetry, vertex, and y-intercept for a graph in standard form. Today we're going to put everything together and get it on a graph. Before you start to graph any quadratic function, the first thing I want you to do is identify whether or not the graph opens up or down. Remember, the way that you can tell that is by looking at the coefficient of your x squared. If the coefficient of x squared is positive, it will open up. Ours is negative, so it will open down. So we need to make sure that our equation is consistent with our graph. Next, for standard form, we'll identify our a, b, and c values. A is the coefficient of our x squared, which we already looked at as a negative. We just got to put the 1 on the end of it. B is the coefficient of x, which is 6. C is our constant, that number all by itself with no variable, in this case negative 1. Next, we'll find our axis of symmetry by using that x equals the opposite of b over 2a formula. Opposite of b is 6 over 2 times a is negative 1. Negative 6 divided by negative 2 after we multiply gives us 3. So that's our axis of symmetry. We take that x value and substitute it back in to find our vertex, which gives us y equals the opposite of 3 squared plus 6 times 3 minus 1. Order of operations, square that 3 before you multiply it by negative. 6 times 3 is 18. Negative 9 plus 18 is 9, minus 1 is 8. So we get a vertex of 3, 8. Finally, we can use our shortcut to find our y-intercept, 0, and then our c value, which is negative 1. Now we only have 2 ordered pairs that we're graphing, so it's really important that we use our axis of symmetry, like I showed you for factored form, to get a third point, otherwise you can't graph a parabola at all. So we'll start by plotting the 2 points we have. 3, 8 is our vertex. 0, negative 1 is our y-intercept, and then we'll sketch in that axis of symmetry, and we'll flip our y-intercept across that axis of symmetry. So again, our y-intercept is 3 away from the axis of symmetry, so we go 3 away on the other side to get an additional point of 6, negative 1. Then we can connect our 3 points, remembering to make a nice curve at our vertex. And arrows because the parabola will continue beyond just what we have graphed. Example 2, first thing we're going to do is identify if our graph opens up or down. The coefficient of x squared is positive, so this graph will open up. Identifying our a, b, and c values. A is the coefficient of x squared, b is the coefficient of x, and c is our constant. We can then use those values to find our axis of symmetry. X equals the opposite of b, so our 8 will become positive, over 2 times a. 8 divided by 4 gives us 2. Substituting that value back in to find our vertex. Y equals 2 times 2 squared minus 8 times 2 plus 9. Squaring our 2 first, we get 4. Negative 8 times 2 is negative 16. 2 times 4 is 8. Combining all of our terms, 8 minus 16 is negative 8, plus 9 is positive 1. So we have a vertex of 2, positive 1. Finally, we need our y-intercept, which gives us 0, and then our c value of 9. Plotting these 2 points on our graph, we had a vertex at 2, 1, and a y-intercept at 0, 9. So next we'll sketch in that axis of symmetry right through our vertex so that we can flip that y-intercept across the axis of symmetry. Our y-intercept is 2 away from our axis of symmetry, so we go 2 away on the other side, and we get a point of 4,9 as our extra point that we can graph, making a nice smooth curve at our vertex and putting arrows at the end of our parabola. Final example, first of all, does our graph open up or down? Our lead coefficient is negative, so our graph will open down. A is the coefficient of x squared, B is the coefficient of x, and C is our constant. Finding our axis of symmetry, we have x equals the opposite of b, so that 12 becomes positive, divided by 2 times a. 12 divided by negative 6 gives us a negative 2 for our axis of symmetry. Finding our vertex, we'll take that x value and substitute it back in for x to solve for y. So we have negative 3 times negative 2 squared minus 12 times negative 2 minus 8. Order of operations, square your 2 before you multiply it by the negative 3. Negative 12 times negative 2 is a positive 24 minus 8. Multiplying our negative 3 by 4, we get negative 12 plus 24 minus 8. Negative 12 plus 24 is 12, minus 8 is 4. So we have a vertex of negative 2, positive 4. Finding our y-intercept, that shortcut, 0, and then our c value is negative 8. Graphing our vertex of negative 2, positive 4. Our y-intercept was 0, negative 8. Then we sketch in our axis of symmetry so we can flip our y-intercept across it to get an extra point for our parabola. Our y-intercept is 2 away again from the axis of symmetry, so we go 2 off to the left this time. And we make a nice smooth curve, not a V. The skinnier your parabola is, the more tempting it is to make a V. Make sure you're really careful about getting a curve at that vertex. And the additional point we got this time was negative 4, negative 8. And finally, here's your U-try question. Get as much information as you can from this equation so that we can talk about areas that you need help on in class.